Have you ever looked at your cat quietly eating wet food and thought it was just a nicer meal? When in reality, that tiny choice might be changing their kidneys, their weight, their fur, their mood, and even the way they follow you around the house? Because what seems harmless, simple, and loving on the surface could either help your cat thrive, or, if handled the wrong way, create a problem most owners never see coming. Most people think feeding wet food every day is just about taste, something softer, something richer, something your cat seems to enjoy more. But that is not the real story. The real story is what begins happening inside your cat's body after that bowl is empty. Quiet changes, fast changes. Changes you usually do not notice until they show up in your cat's energy, their litter box habits, their fur, or the way they act around food. And once you understand what is actually happening, you may never look at mealtime the same way again. Because from the very first days, one of the biggest changes is hydration. That matters more than most people realize. Cats are not built like dogs. They do not naturally run to a water bowl and drink the way many owners expect. Their instincts come from survival. Their ancestors were hunters, and most of the water they needed came from prey. So even when a house cat seems to ignore water, that is not always stubbornness. It is biology. Now here is where things get interesting. Dry food contains very little moisture. Wet food contains dramatically more. And that one difference can change the entire way your cat's body handles fluid, waste, and strain on the urinary system. In simple terms, daily wet food can help your cat stop living slightly dehydrated. That means more natural hydration moving through the body, less concentrated urine, less pressure on the kidneys. And for some cats, especially males, that matters in a very serious way. Because urinary issues do not always arrive with a warning. Sometimes the danger builds quietly, while the cat still looks normal, still walks normally, still acts almost the same. And that is what makes it scary. The problem does not always announce itself until it becomes an emergency. But when your cat gets more moisture through food every single day, their body often has a better chance of staying in balance. The system works the way it was meant to work, and that first shift, honestly, is the foundation for everything else. Then comes the part that surprises a lot of owners. Weight. So many indoor cats gain weight, and their owners blame laziness, age, or bad habits. But sometimes the issue is not how much food is being offered. Sometimes it is the design of the food itself. Cats are obligate carnivores. Their bodies are built to process animal-based nutrition far better than a bowl packed with unnecessary carbohydrates. And when a cat eats food that fills the bowl but does not truly satisfy the body, something frustrating happens. They keep asking for more. Not because they are dramatic, not because they are spoiled, because they do not feel done. Wet food changes that equation in a way many owners do not expect. It is often higher in moisture, higher in protein, and lower in carbs. That combination can help a cat feel fuller with fewer calories, and more importantly, feel genuinely satisfied after eating. That is a huge emotional shift inside the home. Because a cat that feels satisfied behaves differently from a cat that feels deprived. And maybe you have seen this without realizing it. The cat that keeps circling the kitchen. The cat that acts like every meal is their last chance to eat. The cat that wakes you up before sunrise, begging, pacing, staring, demanding. It looks like bad behavior, but sometimes it is just unmet biological need. And when that need is finally met, the desperation starts to soften. That is where relief begins. Not just for the cat, but for you too. Because mealtime becomes quieter, less frantic, less chaotic, less emotionally draining. And that is only part of the story. Your cat's coat may tell the truth before anything else does. A lot of owners spend money on brushes, grooming tools, supplements, and shampoos, trying to fix fur that feels dry, rough, greasy, or dull. But the coat is often not the problem, it is the messenger. When nutrition is off, the skin and fur are usually among the first places to show it. The shine disappears. Shedding gets worse. The coat starts feeling tired, almost dusty. And here's the surprising part. Sometimes the fix is not on the outside at all. Sometimes the body just needs better raw material on the inside. Wet food naturally brings more moisture and often a stronger profile of the animal-based proteins and fats cats depend on. Over time, that can show up in ways owners notice quickly. Softer fur, better texture, less flaking, a healthier appearance that makes your cat look more comfortable in their own skin. You do not always need months to notice it. Sometimes a few weeks is enough for owners to stop and think, wait, what changed? And once you see that change, you start realizing something bigger. Your cat was not merely eating, your cat was recovering. But now we get to one of the most human parts of this entire conversation: behavior. Because food is not just nutrition. Food is emotion, routine, security, anticipation. If your cat screams the moment you walk into the kitchen, if they inhale food in seconds, if they guard the bowl or act restless between meals, most people call that personality. But what if it is not? What if your cat has been living in a cycle of never feeling fully satisfied? Dry, low-moisture meals can leave some cats seeking more faster than owners expect. So the begging starts, the pacing starts, the obsession builds. And over time, that pattern becomes normal in the house, until one day it changes. When a cat begins eating moisture-rich meals that actually trigger better fullness signals, the emotional temperature around food can come down. They eat, they settle, they walk away. That may sound small, but for many owners it feels shocking. Because the cat they thought was greedy may simply have been uncomfortable. The cat they thought was dramatic may simply have been undersatisfied. And once that tension lifts, the whole home can feel calmer. Now, to be fair, not every food problem is solved by wet food alone. Some cats eat too fast because they have competition. Some came from stressful environments. Some developed survival habits that do not disappear overnight. That is why flexibility matters. Wet food can help, but it can also work even better when paired with smart feeding habits. Smaller portions, more structured meal times, a food puzzle, a slower routine, a cleaner schedule. This is not about perfection. It is about adapting the feeding style to the cat in front of you. And that brings us to the part almost nobody talks about, the hidden risk. Because after hearing all these benefits, most people assume wet food is automatically safer, better, and easier. Not exactly. Wet food can help your cat a lot, but only if you handle it correctly after opening it. And this is where good intentions can quietly backfire. The moment wet food sits out at room temperature, the clock starts ticking. Bacteria can begin multiplying long before the food looks bad, smells bad, or feels suspicious to you. That is what makes it dangerous. It does not warn you. A cat that nibbles, walks away, and comes back later may be returning to food that is no longer safe. And many owners never realize that risk because visually, everything still looks fine. That is the trap. The danger looks ordinary, so the safe habit is simple. Do not leave wet food sitting out for too long. Refrigerate unused portions promptly. Use them within a reasonable time, and when serving food from the fridge, warm it slightly so it feels more natural and appealing. That small detail matters more than people think. Because the difference between wet food helping your cat And wet food hurting your cat may come down to what happens after the can is opened. And that is the real takeaway here. Wet food is not magic. It is not a miracle fix. But when used correctly, it can support hydration, improve satisfaction, help with body condition, reveal itself in the coat, and calm a cat's relationship with food in ways many owners never expected. So the next time your cat eats, do not just ask whether they liked the meal. Ask something deeper. What is this meal doing inside their body? Because once you start asking that question, you stop feeding on habit. You start feeding with awareness. And that single shift might become one of the most important things you ever do for your cat.